Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alistair. That's absolutely amazing. And it not only is the are your arguments well established in science, but you're so passionate about it, and you just want to share that with other people. And honestly, for that, I absolutely applaud you. And at the same time, I'm so embarrassed about the fact that we in our practice, have done lots of different things and we've tried different stuff, and some work, some don't. But gardening is not something that we've really, pushed us or highlighted, and it's and actually the case when you've made it as you have is so powerful. And there's also a big drive now for social prescribing, as you mentioned. um, I think that is definitely something that we as a practice are going to go away and work really hard and to kind of try to raise the profile, not just with our practices, but more widely as well. And there are a few questions, and I'll come to those in just a moment. We've run a bit over time, but I think this is absolutely
Yeah,
worth
I'm
it.
really sorry. I ranted on a bit. Sorry.
Well, the interesting thing is that I love the idea of like plants as natural barriers, and so we're in West London, so we've got A380s, sort of A380s wheels clipping our chimneys as they land at Heathrow. So actually, those ideas around water and reducing pollution and noise are something that is particularly relevant to us. But also, one of the other interesting thing was that you mentioned was about kind of the impact of the senses. Maybe to think of plants not as plants, but as like art and living wall, and just kind of all of these things that you've kind of mentioned are um, sort of a really interesting take on what I perceived gardening as before we met. Um, just for patients, there's two things actually. The one is that we're going to start a volunteer program with Northwest London, and one of the things we thought we'd do is to try to support patients with helping use more digital technology. But actually, I think we should include something around gardening and well-being, and that would be really good to get your input on that, Alistair. And also, we're moving premises, as many of you are aware, and I think many practices are, don't really use flowers and plants, and actually CQC regulations are there, but I'm sure there are ways around that, and I think it'd be
Definitely, yeah.
amazing for both the staff and patients
There
to have.
definitely are. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether you've heard of so more hospital. Well, Kingston Hospital, I walked around there not so long ago. Had plants in the hospital, which is really forward thinking, because they're not. I think a lot of people plants are alien to them. It's like, oh God, don't know what to do. Horatio's garden, so they actually have hospital beds out in gardens. Linked to work. Tower Hamlets is doing some really good work. There are at least 6 GPs now in the country, and the more GPs we can get prescribing gardening and doing it, because I believe that it will help a lot of people. Don't necessarily, in some instances, obviously you do need the drugs, but in many cases you might not. And I think you just need that support around you. And the social prescribing stuff. There are more and more gardens. So in the garden up north Manchester, Bridgewater, we've got a social and therapeutic garden that we've designed, and we've got patients going through that, linked with Salford University. So yeah, there's definitely more stuff coming online, but the more that can be done, I think the better.
I think the research around
It's taken me 10 years. Of research and
it's 10 years well spent, Alistair. It's interesting how the research about gardening being productive and useful and changing moods and behaviour is, as you say, is well established. But it's interesting in your presentation that it appears now to have moved on to sort of using plants as drugs, basically. Like if you're talking about a dose response curve, that's a methodology that is used in therapeutics for medication. And you've measured cortisol, which is a stress hormone, as you mentioned, which, it's interesting. It will be really interesting to look at basically whether we can control patients' blood pressures, whether we can reduce their medication by using plant therapy, and actually kind of, or whether we can delay initiating treatment in the first instance by, gardening. I think to think of it as, as another tool in the work that we do in primary care is a really interesting area for research.
I think certainly. I mean, it's really true. I mean, again, I just hark back to us being. I know many people would like it, but we're animals, and if animals are stressed, usually they're stressed because they're not in the right environment. And it's not just the environment of other people around. Yes, there are threats and there are others, but it's also the environment that we have in our situation. So certainly one of the things that we're championing very much is around certainly the planning side of things, to make sure that planning, be it balconies, be it high-rise flats, be it any development, needs to think about creating an individual space for individual people, because community gardening is good and does a lot of good, but often it's also having that ability to have your own space, your own control, and to feel in control and to not worry that, and so I think, it's a preventative natural healthcare. So designing gardens or designing blueprints for well-being, which plants, how many plants, and how to interact with those plants to optimize the preventative stuff. But it's just finding the action. So finding more people, more doctors, others actually starting to do it.
Well, I think that's why your book is particularly good, actually, because it doesn't overwhelm you, but it does give you some ideas and something. So it is a starter for a blueprint to get you involved. I've got a couple of quick questions. We've completely lost track of time, so we are on time.
Sorry.
Not in this country. So we've moved to different time zone. I think we can still stick to the 19 minutes. But honestly, every word you've mentioned is a pearl of wisdom, and it's just been fascinating. So thank you very much. A couple of quick fire questions to finish off. Thank you to all the patients who've held on in there. I'm sure you've got things to do, but we will make this available later on, and we'll send you links and things. So if you've missed bits, you can always come back. So a couple of quick questions, Alistair. So is it safe to visit garden centres?
As long as you do good social distancing, it is safe. I went to a garden centre last week. I was just very, very careful. Actually, I wore a mask, and that's up to you whether you want to do that or not. But I did, and then I got my compost, which I was desperate for, and then I got home and washed my hands and just took precautions. So I think and do help. Our industry at the moment has really struggled because of the scenario of lots of plants not being able to get and people not being able to obtain them. You can still get stuff online as well. So if you're really nervous, I think the pressure of garden centres opening will mean that online stuff might come through quicker. Yeah,
and I'd echo that sentiment. I think you need to take precautions, but actually it's well worth a visit. And personally, I think just visiting local garden centres, perhaps the independent ones in particular, would be help sustain the local economy as well. Do you think eating lavender helps sleep better?
Oh, that's there was a study, and I don't think it came out conclusive. So lavender biscuits, and I think there was one that also looked at it. So I think that's possibly inconclusive. What I do know is there are certain tablets that are prescribed with a certain amount of the right ingredients from the lavender that absolutely do. So, and I do also know that burning essential oil has a positive effect in relation to sleep, or having the real thing, having the flowers. But I'm not sure in relation to eating. It's something that I didn't come across a huge amount on that.
I mean, I've never seen lavender on a menu, but you know, unless it's a really posh restaurant where they give you edible flowers.
Yeah, they do like lavender biscuits, and like I've tried them. They're sort of an acquired taste.
We won't push over the edge.
Yeah.
There's some other questions about which plants smell nice, which ones reduce stress, and which ones will encourage birds. I think you covered some of those in your presentation, but actually there are some really good ideas where you give specific names of plants within your book. So that's probably the best place for it. There's a question here which says, what types of plants don't encourage insects to come near? I think you would argue you do want insects to come, don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it depends on what insects that you don't particularly want. I mean, we're really lucky in the UK. We have very few that are majorly problematic, unless obviously you have a big issue with bees and wasps and you know, allergic reactions to them. So and we're not in places like Malaysia where there are massive, I mean, I've been in Malaysian rainforests, there are leeches and snakes and spider webs that you really don't want to bounce into. But I think you have to tolerate a little bit of wildlife if you're going to bring some of the plants. Many indoor plants don't tend to that you can manage.
Sorry, we lost you there a bit, but that's fine. So, which types of plants don't need lots of light and water regularly? You've mentioned a few in your talk today. This is an interesting one. I wonder if you just give some pointers, and I think we as a practice will definitely be pushing this as giving you ideas of where you can go locally. But somebody said, what's the best way to make a start? Are there any courses that you can join, or any resources that you can think of where somebody might, other than picking up this fabulous book?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Go onto the RHS website. There's loads and loads of information there, loads of free information there about growing stuff. Start easy. There's a campaign for school gardening information on the RHS website, which is geared up to teachers. So it helps. It really explains things in a really easy way. To get growing. Start with things that are really simple. Go with plants that are awarded garden merit, AGMs, because they're difficult to kill, and you know, I think go with things that you know, peace lily, spathiphyllum, Willisiada peace lily. It's, I think I mentioned to you, it's the one that's in Hot Fuzz. As the movie, and he looks after his peace lily, but that is a really good and very easy plant to have indoors. Parlour palms, they're really easy to look after as well. So I think it's a matter of just, you know, looking for plants that are really easy. This wall behind me has got a fern in it. It's called Splenium scolopendrium. Sorry, the Latin name, but it you know, it tolerates moisture, it tolerates drought, and that's why it's in this plant box here. This from Biotecture. It's a green wall thing. It has its own reservoir, so it grows very easily. Succulents in the house as well, and a lot of succulents are quite easy to look after. Cacti, they're pretty bit prickles, but there are some that, yeah. So I think just, yeah, really, it's just start with some of the simple plants.
Thank you. I see. Yeah, that I just finally realised that what you have behind you is technically a green screen in Zoom.
Yes.
I might get a green screen and just have plants on it, but well, you should be promoting real green.
Yes.
Plants and real green screens. This is a kind of interesting-ish one, and the last one for us today. Thank you, everybody. So, will plants release carbon dioxide at night and take in oxygen? And if so, will it result in a deficiency of oxygen in the room? In which case, should we not have them in the bedroom while sleeping?
Fantastic question. So over the past 4 years, we've been doing some research on houseplants because we wanted to resolve that issue that people have talked about. And it really is about right plant, right place, right purpose. Yeah. That once we crack those elements, and it's understanding how to do that with the 400,000 plants. There's a lot of work to do in the next 10 years. However, what we found was that things like the mother-in-law's tongue, Sansevieria, doesn't give out CO2 at night. So you can select some plants that don't do that, and actually the amount that they give in the night is very, very little compared to what we're doing now. We've also calculated the number of plants that you would need in a room, and it will depend on the number of plants. And in many cases, you would need 20, 30, or 40 plants to make a difference. But again, I think through breeding and selection, but also growing with lights, you can make a big difference. Just recently, we've also discovered, and this will be published in the next couple of months, that the plants will take out nitrogen dioxide. So they actually take that out. So the answer is, if you get the right plant, maybe like I talked about the mother-in-law's tongue, and there are other sort of succulents, then they won't give out the element of CO2 and stuff. In many ways, if you get the growing conditions right, you'll end up with a much better environment with higher oxygen levels. Yeah. Aside of that, there are other studies that have shown even if you do have those levels, the mental well-being impacts of having those plants in your gardens overrides that other aspect, because it's so little in relation to that. But yeah, I mean, have a look. There's if you want to research gate, there's a publication that we've published, and it's about plants and buildings. Search my name and those things, you'll come up with it, and you can read it. It's called Plants and Building Systems.
And there haven't been any cases, have there, where harm has been demonstrated to be caused by plants in the bedroom, other than the triffids?
No, yeah. Other than that,
the
only other thing is there have been, and they're very rare, but occasional poisoning incidents linked to berries being eaten of specific plants. Yeah. Particularly that one that's at Christmas, you have the red berries on that one. But they are so few and far between. The majority of plants don't do that. They're safe. But you can't hide the fact that there are some instances where there are challenges. You just got to know the plant.
So your final, thank you so much, Alistair. So your final tip is have your mother-in-law's tongue in your bedroom. I think
oh dear.
I think that's, if we weren't 1 hour over our 19 minutes, then we'd have to terminate anyway. So I'm glad you didn't mention that at the beginning. Thank you so much for all your time. I, for one, have learned loads and loads and loads. And as I said before, I think this has been a transformative experience for me. And I hope that, I'll spread the work that you're doing. I think it's absolutely remarkable. And we'll do everything we can for our patients. So thank you once again, Alistair, for everything. And all your handy hints and all your... Cool.
Sorry about that. Yes. Thanks very much for letting me sort of share this with people, and just give it a go. And I know if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. I think and just take it steady as you go, and start easy, and just remember that failure will be an option, and you will fail, but actually you will also get some gratification when you do get success. Yeah, someone obviously wants to get told of me. Right.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye now. Bye.